Welcome viewers to yet another show of the Secretariat's Geopolitics. We are going to talk about neighbors once again, both about Pakistan to the west of India and Bangladesh to the east of India, and of course about China to the north of India. Bangladesh's regime change, if any country has gained from it the most, it seems to be China. The frostiness in Indo-Bangladesh relations, the turmoil in Bangladesh, everything seems to have helped China the most. Right now, would you believe it, that the chief advisor of the Premier of Bangladesh, Professor Muhammad Yunus, is right now in China on a trip to Hainan and Beijing. It's a 4-day trip. And he has embarked on that trip on a day when Bangladesh is celebrating its Independence Day. Now that's a very significant thing. You do not attend the Independence Day celebrations of your own country, but rather prefer to go to a foreign country. It just shows the closeness which China has managed to get to Bangladesh. Interestingly, the Foreign Office spokesperson describing Professor Yunus's trip to China said, and I quote, "China is Bangladesh's closest friend, a neighboring country, a strategic partner, and one of its largest trade and development allies." Now, please note the words, China is Bangladesh's closest friend. Now, that's a very significant statement. It is natural for any small neighbor, whether it is Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar, or for that matter, Maldives, to try and play India against China and China against India to extract the maximum benefit. Even Sheikh Hasina's regime, when it was ruling Bangladesh, tried to do that. But nobody in Bangladesh ever said that China is its closest ally. It would not have said it earlier. India's connectivity projects in Bangladesh, and there are quite a few of them, a railway link which takes a train straight from Calcutta up to Agartala, these are still in doldrum, whereas China's projects in Bangladesh are going apace. China has built a naval port near Chittagong, which can host 6 submarines and 8 large warships. By the way, the Bangladesh army has just 2 submarines, and both of them have been bought from China. They are old, semi-retired submarines which China retrofitted and gave it to them a couple of years back. It does not have a single destroyer. It has only frigates. So this huge port, many fear, was actually built for China to use at some stage or the other. Whatever might be the truth or falseness of that claim or that process of thought, the fact is that China also sells Bangladesh some 72% of its military equipment. This in itself is quite a pointer to the extent of relations deepening between the two countries. China is also Bangladesh's largest trade partner. It does about $24 billion of trade with Bangladesh, and most of it is exports from China to Bangladesh. Less than a couple of million dollars of exports from Bangladesh to China. So badly off Bangladesh is in terms of exporting to China. It is thinking of now exporting its 3 fruit crops, mangoes and kathals, jackfruits, to China in order to try and bridge part of that huge gap that Bangladesh has with China. Yunus will be meeting President Xi Jinping and will also hold discussions with CEOs of a number of Chinese companies while he is in Beijing. Interestingly, he announced in his Independence Day speech that Longai, the huge Chinese conglomerate, will set up a huge manufacturing base in Bangladesh to manufacture solar panels. So large is the investment, though it has not been stated how large that is going to be, that he has actually mentioned this in his Independence Day speech, which he pre-recorded before leaving for Beijing. Interestingly, even as Yunus flew to China, 2 generals from the US Pacific or Indo-Pacific Command visited Bangladesh, and they were hosted by General Waqaruzzaman, the army commander of Bangladesh, who actually invited Yunus to form a caretaker government, who is really the real power behind the throne, so to say. And they held talks. The US generals apparently told Waqaruzzaman that they will be supporting Bangladesh Army and that they would like to sell defense equipments to Bangladesh. To understand more on this issue, we will go over to Ambassador Pinak Chakravarty, former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, who has also been High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Welcome to the show, Ambassador Chakravarty. How do you read all that is going on here?
Well, one thing, let me begin by saying that there was a statement out of Dhaka which said that Professor Yunus actually wanted to visit India first, but then in Delhi did not, respond to the request, and and the other visit was being scheduled to China. China, of course, is looking for opportunity here, since they have decided to work with this interim government, and but they basically they don't have in any ideological preference the Chinese anymore, and so they will work with this government because they feel that they can get them to sign some agreements which will give Chinese companies and also some infrastructure projects which will help them in their strategic objective to further their relations with China. But the strategic objective being, of course, to the containment of India. I mean, as the Chinese policy is that if they can alienate as many of India's neighbors as possible, it's good for them, so that India is busy in its neighborhood and contained and does not flex its muscles outside this kind of region. Because clearly China feels that that if there is a potential competitor to China, it's likely to be India. So that is the basic purpose, overall strategic objective. Bangladesh is, of course, looking for investments, loans, and various things. And as you mentioned, that they are one of the earliest and the most active buyers of Chinese military equipment. I think about 80% of their defense forces rely on Chinese military equipment, which is a very strong kind of a leverage the Chinese have. Because as you know, military equipment, if you want to cause problems, you can stop spares. And there are a lot of things that military supplies gives you leverage. And that is what China is trying to do. The other objective that China has always had is to get a foothold in the Bay of Bengal, which is why the rivalry between China, India, and the US, the temperature is rising on this aspect.
Ambassador Chakravarty, interestingly, Wakaruzaman hosted two American generals and from the Indo-Pacific Command, and they had some talks. How do you view that? Is this Bangladesh going in two different directions?
Well, I think the US is also, eyeing Bangladesh because of its, closeness. In fact, people say that one of the reasons why the US and the previous US administration actually gave the green signal for regime change and got rid of Hasina is to prevent her from getting closer to China. Now, if that was true, then clearly they will be wooing this government as well, because strategic interests will override who actually is governing in Dhaka. And they have talked about also the Myanmar issue and what's happening on the border. And of course, the Rohingya issue is there. So that is why you saw the visit of the Deputy Commander of the Pacific Command, or the Indo-Pacific Command as it is called now, in Dhaka. So they are also trying to sell equipment so that the Bangladesh Army would be interested in diversifying as well. No country wants to depend only on one country for defense supplies, because that gives them a stranglehold and it locks them into one country, which is not a very strategically wise decision.
On the other side of India is Pakistan, and it has been embroiled in a civil war for quite a long time. But things seem to be looking extremely bad right at this point of time. We have had this incident where a whole train was hijacked by Baloch rebels. They took 140 people hostage. After that, there was a shootout. the Pakistani army managed to free the rest of the train, but in the process, a lot of people died. Nobody really knows how many died. They have only talked about 33 militants being killed. But the number of civilians or Pakistani army men killed is not yet known, though there are eyewitness accounts of a large number of them also dying. After that, there was this huge crackdown by the Pakistan army. Amongst people whom they arrested was Dr. Maharang Baluch, a civil rights activist who has been long been demonstrating for the return of those Baluch who have been arrested, not brought before any court of law, and then they have just disappeared from the face of the earth. Now, Maharang Baloch and a number of other Baloch leaders have been arrested, and protests have broken out throughout Baluchistan after that. Town after town is witnessing riotous scenes with Pakistan army engaging civilians there. Maharang Baloch was heading something called the Baloch Yaj Kheti Committee. But the towns which have been impacted cut across Baluchistan and actually are beyond Baluchistan. There have been demonstrations even in Karachi. Now all this is going to affect Pakistan, and it is certainly affecting Pakistan. Pakistan's economy has been going through a turmoil for a long time, but this current state of civil war is not helping at all. Just to make you understand how bad the Pakistan's economy is, the Pakistan rupee is now trading at 281 to the dollar, which is about 100 Pakistani rupees more than what it was trading 3 years back, a fall of more than or nearly 60% or so. Pakistan's GDP grew by just 2.5% in 2024 financial year. In the financial year before that, it actually declined. It is expected that Pakistan's economy will not grow by more than 3% this financial year, though the final figures are not yet out. Pakistan's financial year actually ends sometimes in June. Its stock exchange again is in turmoil. It goes up one day and falls another day. Inflation is in double digits. Unemployment rate is at something like 7.5%. The IMF is now in talks with them for another bailout package of $1.8 billion. Before that, a bailout package for $7 billion had been given. So this will just take it to nearly $9 billion or so. Pakistan is on crutches. We will go back again to Ambassador Chakravarty. Incidentally, Ambassador Chakravarty was also at a very young age. Ambassador Chakravarty was the last Indian Consul General in Karachi at a very young age. Besides the other accomplishments, this was one more feather in his cap. We will go back now to Ambassador Chakravarty and ask him, Ambassador Chakravarty, how do you see this latest violence in Baluchistan and how it is impacting Pakistan's economy as a whole?
Well, there certainly has been a spike in the freedom movement in Baluchistan. And one reason, of course, is that that both, I think, Afghanistan and Iran have upped their help to the Baloch Liberation Army and other freedom outfits which are involved in the freedom struggle. And they are getting a lot of international attention also now. So the Pakistan army is fighting to cope with these challenges. We saw the recent train hijacking, which was quite a blow to the Pakistan army. And also there is a public kind of a view growing in Pakistan, which has happened before also, that the Pakistan army is not doing its job properly. And there was again a rumor, or call it a sort of a story, which said that the junior officers in the Pakistan army want the current army chief to be removed. There are lots of things like this happening in Pakistan. The economy is of course not doing too well, but there is a bit of stabilization now. And but I think still they have a long way to go in terms of really reviving the economy and doing better than what they are doing now.
Thank you, viewers. I think we have been able to understand what has been happening in our neighborhood through this episode. We will try and deconstruct in episodes ahead about how whatever is happening in our neighborhood and elsewhere impact India's economy, whether we will be able to see better days or will there be turbulence ahead.